We will make America great again together!
In this video, you learn every US president in order, their time in office, and one amazing fact about each. Stay till the end. Some later presidents completely changed history in unexpected ways. Section 1. Founding Era. George Washington, 1789 to 1797. George Washington, the very first president, was unanimously elected twice and set the two-term tradition by stepping down voluntarily, shaping America's peaceful transfer of power. John Adams, 1797 to 1801. John Adams was the first president to live in the White House, and his son John Quincy Adams later became President U, creating one of America's earliest political dynasties. Thomas Jefferson, 1801 to 1809. Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence and doubled America's size with the Louisiana Purchase, while also founding the University of Virginia and even inventing a swivel chair. James Madison, 1809 to 1817. James Madison, the father of the Constitution, led the US through the War of 1812, watching the British burn Washington, D.C., yet helping preserve the young republic. James Monroe, 1817 to 1825. James Monroe issued the Monroe Doctrine, warning Europe to stay out of the Americas, and presided over an era of good feelings, with relatively little partisan conflict. John Quincy Adams, 1825 to 1829. John Quincy Adams lost the popular vote but won in the House of Representatives, and later became the only former president elected to the House, fighting slavery there. Andrew Jackson, 1829 to 1837. Andrew Jackson, a frontier war hero, survived an assassination attempt and fiercely opposed the National Bank, yet today his face appears on the $20 bill he wanted to destroy. Martin Van Buren, 1837 to 1841. Martin Van Buren was the first president born a US citizen, spoke Dutch as his first language, and helped pioneer the modern party system in American politics. Section 2. Pre-Civil War to Reconstruction. William Henry Harrison, 1841. William Henry Harrison delivered the longest inaugural speech in the reign without a quote, then died just 31 days later, making his presidency the shortest in US history. John Tyler, 1841 to 1845. John Tyler was the first vice president to become president after a death, forcing the nation to accept that a vice president becomes full president, not just acting leader. James K. Polk, 1845 to 1849. James K. Polk was a dark horse candidate who massively expanded US territory through the Mexican-American War, fulfilling his ambitious one-term agenda before retiring voluntarily. Zachary Taylor, 1849 to 1850. War hero Zachary Taylor, nicknamed Old Rough and Ready, had never voted before becoming president and died suddenly after about 16 months in office. Millard Fillmore, 1850 to 1853. Millard Fillmore, born in a log cabin, signed the Fugitive Slave Act to appease both sides, but it instead deepened national tensions and damaged his historical reputation. Franklin Pierce, 1853 to 1857. Franklin Pierce's term saw the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which inflamed slavery conflicts. Personally, he struggled with grief after losing his son just before taking office. James Buchanan, 1857 to 1861. James Buchanan, the only lifelong bachelor president, failed to stop the slide towards civil war and is frequently ranked among the worst presidents in US history. Abraham Lincoln, 1861 to 1865. Abraham Lincoln led the Union through the Civil War and issued the Emancipation Proclamation, and he remains the only US president to hold a patent for a riverboat device. Andrew Johnson, 1865 to 1869. Andrew Johnson became the first president ever impeached, surviving removal by just one vote, as he clashed bitterly with Congress over how to rebuild the South. Ulysses S. Grant, 1869 to 1877. Civil War hero Ulysses S. Grant fought for black civil rights and crushed the Ku Klux Klan, even though his presidency became infamous for corruption scandals among his appointees. Rutherford B. Hayes, 1877 to 1881. Rutherford B. Hayes won one of the most disputed elections, striking a deal that ended Reconstruction, withdrew federal troops from the South, and served only one self-limited term. James A. Garfield, 1881. James Garfield was ambidextrous and could reportedly write Greek with one hand and Latin with the other, but he was assassinated after just a few months in office. Chester A. Arthur, 1881 to 1885. Chester Arthur, once seen as a machine politician, surprised critics by backing civil service reform, cleaning up parts of the spoils system after Garfield's assassination. Section 3. Gilded Age to World Wars. Grover Cleveland, 1885 to 1889, 1893 to 1897. Grover Cleveland is the only president to serve two non-consecutive terms, making him both the 22nd and 24th president in official counting. Benjamin Harrison, 1889 to 1893. Benjamin Harrison, grandson of William Henry Harrison, admitted 6 states to the Union and signed the Sherman Antitrust Act to tackle growing corporate monopolies. William McKinley led the U.S. to victory in the Spanish-American War, gaining overseas territories, but was assassinated in 1901, bringing Theodore Roosevelt to power. Theodore Roosevelt, 1901 to 1909. Theodore Roosevelt became the youngest president at 42, championed national parks, busted trusts, and won the Nobel Peace Prize for mediating the Russo-Japanese War. William Howard Taft, 1909 to 1913. William Howard Taft later became Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, making him the only person to head both the executive and judicial branches of the U.S. government. Woodrow Wilson, 1913 to 1921. Woodrow Wilson led America through World War I and envisioned the League of Nations, but a debilitating stroke left his wife heavily managing access to the president. Warren G. Harding, 1921 to 1923. Warren Harding died in office amid major scandals like Teapot Dome, and although personally liked, his presidency is remembered as one of America's most corrupt. Calvin Coolidge, 1923 to 1929. Calvin, silent call. Coolidge was famous for speaking very little. When informed he was president after Harding's death, he calmly took the oath and went back to bed. Herbert Hoover, 1929 to 1933. Herbert Hoover, a self-made millionaire and humanitarian, entered office just before the Great Depression, and his name became associated with economic hardship, like Hoovervilles. Franklin D. Roosevelt, 1933 to 1945. Franklin D. Roosevelt is the only president elected 4 times, leading the U.S. through the Great Depression and World War II with New Deal programs and Social Security. Harry S. Truman, 1945 to 1953. Harry Truman authorized atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, ended World War II, and launched the Truman Doctrine and Marshall Plan to contain Soviet influence. Section 4, Cold War Era. Dwight D. Eisenhower, 1953 to 1961. Dwight Eisenhower, former Supreme Allied Commander, built the interstate highway system and warned Americans in his farewell address about the military-industrial complex. John F. Kennedy, 1961 to 1963. John F. Kennedy, the youngest elected president, steered the U.S. through the Cuban Missile Crisis and inspired the moon landing goal before being assassinated in Dallas. Lyndon B. Johnson, 1963 to 1969. Lyndon Johnson pushed through the Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act, Medicare, and Medicaid, even as the Vietnam War made him deeply unpopular and he declined to run again. Richard Nixon, 1969 to 1974. Richard Nixon opened relations with China and created the Environmental Protection Agency, but resigned in disgrace due to the Watergate scandal, the only president ever to resign. Gerald Ford, 1974 to 1977. Gerald Ford is the only person to serve as both vice president and president without winning a national election, and he controversially pardoned Nixon for Watergate. Jimmy Carter, 1977 to 1981. Jimmy Carter brokered the Camp David Accords between Egypt and Israel, and after leaving office he became famous for humanitarian work, eventually winning the Nobel Peace Prize. Ronald Reagan, 1981 to 1989. Ronald Reagan, a former Hollywood actor, survived an assassination attempt, championed conservative economics, and is often credited with helping hasten the end of the Cold War. George H. W. Bush, 1989 to 1993. George H. W. Bush oversaw the peaceful end of the Cold War and led a global coalition in the Gulf War, quickly liberating Kuwait from Iraqi occupation. Section 5, Modern Era. Bill Clinton, 1993 to 2001. Bill Clinton presided over strong economic growth and budget surpluses, but his presidency was overshadowed by the Monica Lewinsky scandal and his impeachment, though he was acquitted. George W. Bush, 2001 to 2009. George W. Bush led the country through the 9/11 attacks, launched wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, and created the Department of Homeland Security. Barack Obama, 2009 to 2017. Barack Obama, the first African-American president, passed the Affordable Care Act and won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2009 during his first year in office. Donald Trump, 2017 to 2021. Donald Trump, a businessman and TV personality with no prior public office, was impeached twice and reshaped debates on immigration, trade, and populist politics. Joe Biden, 2021 to 2025. Joe Biden, the oldest president at inauguration and the second Catholic president, passed major COVID-19 relief and infrastructure legislation but faced strong partisan polarization. Donald Trump, 2025. Donald Trump returned to the White House in a non-consecutive second presidency, joining Grover Cleveland as the only presidents with non-consecutive terms in U.S. history. That's every U.S. president, from Washington to today, with one powerful fact each. Which president surprised you the most? Tell in the comments. If this helped you, hit like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend who loves history.